Duke divorced his wife after her mother's funeral, unaware she carried the heir he desperately needed. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining us from, and subscribe if you love stories like this. Now let's begin. The bells of St. Michael's Church tolled across the frost-touched grounds of the Leroy estate. Isabella stood before her mother's grave, her black mourning dress stark against her auburn red hair that refused to stay pinned despite Mary's efforts. At barely 5 feet 3 inches tall, she felt dwarfed by the crowd around her. To her left stood the villagers, farmers, mill workers, the women who had known her since childhood. To her right, the aristocracy stood rigid in their perfectly measured grief. And among them, broad-shouldered and distant, stood Bernard Cavendish, Duke of Cavendish, her husband of 3 years. He had not looked at her once during the entire service. Isabella's amber eyes, her mother had always called them unsettling, fixed on Bernard. His auburn brown hair caught the grey light, and the thin scar running from temple to cheekbone stood out against his pale skin, a memento from the hunting accident that had killed his elder brother Edward 3 years ago, and thrust Bernard into a role he'd never expected. He'd been a cavalry officer once, a second son, free to pursue military life. Now he was a duke, and every decision seemed to weigh on him like ill-fitting armor. The vicar spoke of Lady Margaret's strength and business acumen, how her textile fortune had brought prosperity to the region. Isabella barely heard. Her mother had been practical above all else, practical enough to negotiate her daughter's marriage like a business merger, trading Isabella's dreams of designing patterns for the mills for a title and social elevation. When the coffin was lowered into the earth, Isabella dropped a white rose onto the polished wood. "Goodbye, Mama," she whispered. "I hope it was worth the price." The mourners began dispersing toward the manor where refreshments waited. Bernard remained by the grave, and Isabella found herself approaching him out of habit or hope, or simply not knowing what else to do. "Your Grace," she said softly. He turned, his green eyes shadowed. "Isabella, the service was appropriate. Thank you for coming. Your mother's fortune stabilized the Cavendish estates when I inherited them in chaos after Edward's death." His tone was businesslike, distant. "I would not dishonor her investment by failing to attend." Investment. The word stung. "Of course," Isabella managed. An uncomfortable silence stretched. Around them, the last guests headed toward the manor. "We should return," Bernard said. "People will expect to see us." He offered his arm, propriety, not affection. Isabella took it, feeling the stiffness in his posture, the careful distance he maintained as if contact with her was distasteful. They walked in silence. Behind them, gravediggers waited to finish their work. Inside the manor, Mrs. Beatrice Harlow, the family housekeeper, appeared with tea. "Drink this, my lady. You've had nothing since breakfast." "I'm not hungry." "I didn't ask if you were hungry." Mrs. Harlow's tone allowed no argument. Isabella accepted the cup with a faint smile. Mrs. Harlow had been more mother to her than Lady Margaret in many ways, the one who had secretly saved Isabella's early pattern sketches, who had held her while she cried on her wedding night when Bernard performed his duty with all the warmth of a military officer completing an unpleasant task. Bernard had moved to speak with gentlemen near the fireplace. Isabella caught fragments, horsebreeding, parliament. He laughed at something, a genuine sound she hadn't heard directed at her in over a year. "How are you managing?" Countess Vivienne Thornbury appeared at Isabella's side. Bernard's elder sister was resplendent in black silk, her expression both sympathetic and shrewd, as well as can be expected. Margaret was formidable. She and I had our differences, but I respected what she built. Vivian glanced toward Bernard, who was now speaking intently with his solicitor, Mr. Benjamin Cross. "My brother has been drowning since Edward died. Drowning, and too proud to admit it." Before Isabella could respond, Lady Cecilia Hastings glided over with false sympathy dripping from every word. How dreadfully sad this must be, and at such a delicate time. I understand the Cavendish line still awaits an heir. Your mother must have been so disappointed. The barb struck true. Isabella felt blood drain from her face, but years of training held. My mother built an empire and died knowing it would continue employing 300 families. I suspect that legacy satisfied her more than any grandchild. But then you'd understand the difference between building something and simply inheriting it, wouldn't you? Cecilia flushed with anger and retreated. Vivian barely suppressed a smile. Well done, she murmured. But Isabella felt hollow. 3 years of marriage, 3 years of monthly disappointments, of watching hope die again and again, 3 years of Bernard's visits to her bedroom becoming more perfunctory until they stopped almost entirely. She had stopped hoping by the 3rd year, stopped crying, stopped feeling much beyond a dull, persistent shame. The afternoon dragged on, guests departed. Finally, as dusk settled, the last visitor left. Isabella wanted nothing more than to retreat to her childhood room and surrender to grief. Isabella. She turned to find Bernard approaching with Mr. Cross. Something in Bernard's expression made her stomach tighten. Mr. Cross and I require a word. In the study, please. It was not a request. Vivian started to follow, but Bernard shook his head. This is private, sister. Isabella followed them to her father's old study, her heart pounding. Bernard took the seat behind the desk, her father's chair, her mother's chair, while Mr. Cross positioned himself with his leather portfolio. You are aware our marriage was contracted under specific terms, Bernard began, not meeting her eyes. Cold dread seeped through Isabella's chest. Yes. The settlement stipulated that the Leroy textile fortune would resolve the chaos I inherited when Edward died unexpectedly. In exchange, you became Duchess of Cavendish, and any children would inherit both properties. I know this. What is your point? Bernard finally looked at her. The financial obligations are fulfilled, the estates are stable, but there are no children. His voice was flat, controlled. In 3 years, Isabella, I am 35 years old. The duchy requires an heir. I cannot wait indefinitely for something that clearly will not happen. The world tilted. You cannot be serious. I have instructed Mr. Cross to begin proceedings for a legal separation. Someone gasped. Isabella realized it was her. My mother has been dead for 3 days. 3 days, Bernard. The timing is unfortunate, Mr. Cross said smoothly, but the legal realities don't change based on sentiment. Unfortunate? Isabella stood abruptly. She arranged this marriage. She gave you everything. And before her body is even cold, you discard me like a failed investment. You are being hysterical, Bernard said coldly. I am being human, something you know nothing about. The words burst from her, raw and furious. You treat people like pieces on a campaign map. Did it occur to you that I might have feelings? Control yourself. This behavior confirms we are unsuited. Isabella forced herself to breathe. Her mind, trained from childhood to calculate and analyze, began working. 3 years, no child. Doctors finding nothing wrong. Bernard's desperation to prove himself after inheriting unexpectedly, none of it excused this, but it explained it. What are you proposing? She asked, her voice shaking but controlled. Mr. Cross extracted documents. You retain this property and receive £800 annually. Your belongings and jewelry remain yours. In exchange, you agree to legal separation and make no claims on the Cavendish estates. £800, comfortable but constrained. Exactly what her mother had feared, the fate Lady Margaret had sacrificed everything to prevent. And if I refuse? Parliamentary divorce, Bernard said. Sounds more public, more humiliating, more expensive. The result would be the same, but your reputation would be destroyed. Isabella looked at him and realized with sick certainty that he meant every word. He had planned this, waited until her mother died, until she had no one powerful to turn to. You calculated this, she said slowly. Waited until I had no one to fight for me. I waited until the financial obligations were complete. Mr. Cross shifted uncomfortably. His Grace's offer is more than fair, Lady Isabella. Most men in his position wouldn't cast off their wives at all. Most wives fulfill their fundamental purpose, Bernard replied. The words struck like a physical blow, brutal, unforgiving, designed to wound. They hit the deepest part of Isabella's shame, the fear that she was defective, broken, unworthy. But beneath the wound, something else stirred. Pride. Not hollow aristocratic pretension, but the pride of a woman who had learned to calculate thread counts before she could dance, who had created patterns that workers still remembered, who had survived 3 years of cold indifference. "I see," Isabella said quietly. She picked up the document, scanning it with steady hands. "You wish me to leave within a week. That would be preferable. Your servants may accompany you if they wish." "How thoughtful." She set the paper down carefully. "Very well. Your Grace, I will not fight you. I will sign your papers. I will leave your home." Bernard blinked, clearly surprised. "That is, I am pleased you are being reasonable. Do not mistake pragmatism for forgiveness." She turned toward the door, then looked back. "I hope your next wife gives you the heir you so desperately require. I hope she is young and fertile and untroubled by inconvenient emotions. And I hope that someday you remember this moment and realize what you threw away." She left before he could respond, holding her head high until she reached her childhood room. Only then did she let the tears fall. Mrs. Harlow found her an hour later. "What has happened?" "He's ending it," Isabella whispered. "He's casting me off." Mrs. Harlow's hand stilled in Isabella's hair. "Gad, that man is a fool and a coward. That man is a duke who was raised to be a soldier, not a husband." Isabella sat up, wiping her face. "He inherited chaos when Edward died and thought following the rules perfectly would prove he deserved the role. I was part of that plan, a component in a tactical strategy. When the strategy failed, he did what his training taught him. You defend him. I understand him, which is not the same as forgiving him." Isabella drew a shaky breath. "He controls everything, money, property, reputation. But Mrs. Harlow, this house is mine, the land is mine, the mills are mine. He may take away his title, but he cannot take away who I am." "Then you shall have to discover who that is," Mrs. Harlow said firmly, "starting tomorrow." The following days blurred into packing and paperwork. Bernard returned to Cavendish Hall immediately, leaving Mr. Cross to handle details. Servants came to collect Isabella's belongings with practiced efficiency. Mary, her lady's maid, wept as she folded gowns. "I'll come with you, my lady. I won't abandon you." Other servants were less brave. The Cavendish staff made polite excuses and returned to their positions. Isabella understood. They had families to feed, security to maintain. Only 3 people chose to stay: Mary, Mrs. Harlow, and young Thomas Briggs from the stables. "We'll manage," Mrs. Harlow said as loaded wagons departed. "We've managed with less." Isabella looked at the manor that was now truly hers and the responsibility that came with it. The estate was complex: tenants, mills, repairs to manage. Her mother had handled it all with an iron will and sharp mind. Could Isabella do the same? She had no choice but to try. The village buzzed with gossip within days. By week's end, everyone within 20 miles knew the Duchess of Cavendish had been set aside for failing to produce an heir. Some were sympathetic. The mill workers expressed outrage. "His Grace don't know what he's lost," they told Mrs. Harlow. Others were less kind. Aristocratic families suddenly found reasons to avoid her. Invitations dried up. Isabella found she didn't care. She threw herself into learning estate management instead, studying her mother's records, meeting with Mr. Briggs the steward, walking the property and speaking with tenants. Old Mrs. Fletcher needed her roof repaired. The Hendersons' son wanted to marry but had no cottage. Young William Price had ideas about crop rotation. Isabella listened. She learned. She made decisions, some good, some questionable, all of them hers. And slowly, she began to feel like herself again. Not the Duchess of Cavendish, just Isabella. One afternoon, about 6 weeks after leaving Cavendish Hall, she found herself in her father's study, staring at the desk that caught morning light perfectly. On impulse, she opened a drawer and pulled out paper and charcoal, supplies she hadn't touched in 3 years. Her hands trembled. What if the gift had left her? but when charcoal met paper, her hands remembered. Lines flowed, delicate florals intertwining with geometric borders, mathematical precision meeting artistic vision. She worked for hours, losing herself in creation. When Mrs. Harlow found her, Isabella was surrounded by sketches, charcoal smudging her freckled cheek, smiling for the first time in weeks. "What are you working on?" "Pattern designs. I used to create these for the mills before marriage. Foolish, I suppose." "Not foolish," Mrs. Harlow said firmly. "Your mother may have wanted you to rise above the mills, but there's no shame in creation. Perhaps it's time you stopped being what others wanted and discovered what you're meant to be." Isabella might have found peace in this new life, if not for what she discovered 2 weeks later. It was Mary who noticed first. "Begging your pardon, my lady," the maid said one morning while lacing Isabella's stays. "But these are fitting differently." Isabella glanced down. The stays did feel tighter, particularly around the bust. "I've been eating more regularly." "Yes, my lady." But Mary's expression remained troubled. "Have your courses come regular?" The question made Isabella pause. She tried to remember. So much chaos, the funeral, separation, move. Surely they'd come at some point. But counting backward, cold realization crept over her, not since before her mother's funeral. 7 weeks? 8? "My lady, you've gone pale." "No," Isabella said faintly. "I just need a moment." But she didn't need a moment. She needed certainty. Dr. Edmund Clark arrived 2 days later, summoned by a carefully worded message about feeling unwell. He was an elderly gentleman with kind eyes, the same physician who had attended Lady Margaret and examined Isabella multiple times during her marriage. "You look well, Lady Isabella, better than when I last saw you." "Thank you, Doctor." "Clark." Isabella's heart raced. "I asked you here because I have concerns about my health." She described the symptoms carefully: tender breasts, occasional morning nausea, fatigue, and the absence of her courses. Dr. Clark listened professionally, asking personal questions that made Isabella's face burn. Finally, he smiled gently. "Lady Isabella, I believe you are with child." The words echoed in the quiet room. "With child, pregnant, carrying Bernard's heir." "Are you certain?" "As certain as I can be at this stage, based on what you've told me, approximately 8 to 10 weeks along." 8 weeks. The funeral had been 6 weeks ago, which meant she'd conceived before Bernard ended their marriage, before he cast her aside for failing to provide an heir. A hysterical laugh bubbled up. The irony was too enormous, too darkly perfect. "My lady, are you all right?" "I'm pregnant," she said, and the words felt surreal. "I'm carrying the Duke's child, and he doesn't know. He divorced me for not giving him an heir, and all the while—" She couldn't finish. Dr. Clark's expression grew grave. "You must inform His Grace immediately. Regardless of circumstances, he has a right to know. More importantly, the child has rights to legitimacy, inheritance, the Cavendish name." "Does he?" "He had the right to treat me as a partner, rather than a broodmare. He had so many rights, Doctor, and he exercised none of them. Why should I rush to inform him?" "Because it is honorable," the doctor said quietly, "and because that child deserves to know its father." Isabella pressed her hands to her still flat stomach. A child. Bernard's child. The heir he'd wanted so desperately he'd destroyed their marriage pursuing it. What if I don't tell him? What if I raise this child here, as mine alone? Dr. Clark shook his head. "You cannot hide a pregnancy. Servants talk, villagers gossip. Word will reach the Duke eventually, and the longer you wait, the worse it appears. He could question the child's legitimacy. The child is legitimate. We were married when it was conceived. Then prove it. Tell him now, while timing is clear. Protect your child's rights." He was correct. Isabella knew it. But the thought of going to Bernard, of seeing shock in his eyes, of giving him this satisfaction, it was unbearable. "I need time to think." Dr. Clark sighed but nodded. "Don't wait too long. These matters reveal themselves regardless of our wishes." After he left, Isabella sat in gathering dusk, one hand on her stomach. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the life within. I'm sorry you're being born into such a mess, but I promise I will protect you. I will love you, and I will not let anyone make you feel unwanted. Mrs. Harlow found her in the dark. Mary told me. Is it true? Yes. Isabella looked up, surprised to find herself smiling through tears. I'm going to have a baby. After everything, I'm pregnant. Mrs. Harlow sat heavily. Does he know? No. And I'm not certain I'll tell him. Not yet. Isabella, he threw me away, Isabella said, voice hardening. Let him find out from someone else. Let him hear it as gossip. That's your hurt talking, not your reason. Perhaps, but hurt has its own wisdom. Isabella stood, moving to the window. I will tell him eventually. But on my terms, in my time, he took everything from me. This secret is mine. What if word reaches him first? Then so be it, Isabella said. I've learned I'm stronger than I thought. I can survive scandal, gossip, and if necessary, Bernard Cavendish knowing he threw away what he claimed to want most. The weeks that followed were strange. Isabella moved through her days acutely aware of every change, every flutter of nausea, every moment of fatigue. Mary and Mrs. Harlow helped conceal the pregnancy. Dresses were altered, shawls worn constantly. You're showing more each day, Mary whispered one morning. Another few weeks and nothing will hide it. I know, but I'm not ready. The baby had become real to her. She found herself talking to it during sleepless nights. Your father rides well, she told the tiny life one night. Vivian says he was the finest cavalryman in his regiment. Perhaps you'll inherit that. She paused. He wasn't always cold. Or perhaps he was, and I didn't see it. A second son thrust into a role he never wanted, drowning in responsibility. The baby shifted slightly, just a flutter. I don't hate him, she continued. I'm angry and hurt, but hate? No. How can I hate someone I never really knew? It began, as these things do, with an accident. Mr. Pemberton, a traveling merchant, arrived one October afternoon. Mrs. Harlow received him in the kitchen while Cook prepared refreshments. They were sorting his wares when Cook mentioned they were low on ginger root. We're going through it faster than usual. Lady Isabella's been having it steeped for tea most mornings. Says it settles her stomach. Mrs. Harlow froze, but too late. She saw the gleam in Pemberton's eyes, gossip worth spreading. Morning sickness, is it? He said with false casualness. Just a passing illness, the change of seasons. But the damage was done. Within a week, the rumor had reached the next village. Within 2 weeks, York. From there, it was only days before someone with London connections heard. Isabella first learned from Mr. Briggs, the steward, who came looking uncomfortable. Begging pardon, my lady, but there's talk. About you, about your condition. Isabella's hand moved instinctively to her stomach. What sort of talk? Folk are saying you're with child. They're counting months, making speculations. After he left, Isabella sat motionless. Then she rose to find Mrs. Harlow. The housekeeper was in the linen closet, expression miserable. I'm so sorry. I didn't think... It's not your fault, Isabella interrupted gently. I should have told him weeks ago. Dr. Clark warned this would happen. What will you do? I'll write to Bernard. Today. Before he hears through gossip. It should have been easy, a simple statement of fact. Instead, Isabella stared at blank paper for an hour, trying to find words that conveyed necessary information without begging or attacking. She was still struggling when Mary entered with a silver tray bearing a single envelope. Isabella's hands shook as she recognized the handwriting. Bernard. Isabella. It has been brought to my attention through various channels that rumors are circulating regarding your health, specifically that you are with child. I must know immediately whether there is truth to these claims. The implications are significant for both of us and for the Cavendish succession. Mr. Cross will call upon you within the week to obtain whatever medical documentation exists. I expect your cooperation. If these rumors prove true, we must address the situation immediately. The child's legitimacy and inheritance rights must be secured through proper legal channels. Questions of timing and paternity must be established beyond doubt. I await your response. Bernard Cavendish, Duke of Cavendish. Isabella read it 3 times, emotions shifting from shock to anger to bitter amusement. No concern for her well-being. No acknowledgement that he'd cast her off for failing to provide the heir she now carried. No expression of regret, just legal considerations and questions of paternity. Questions of paternity, she said aloud, fury rising. As if I might have taken a lover in 10 weeks, as if I would lie. She returned to her desk. This time, words came easily. Your Grace, I confirm the rumors are accurate. I am with child, Doctor. Clark can attest to timing and legitimacy of conception, which occurred while we were legally married. I estimate birth in late April or early May. As for questions of paternity, I find that phrase insulting and unnecessary. We both know I have shared no other man's bed. The child is yours, conceived during one of your infrequent visits to my chambers before my mother's death. You may send Mr. Cross. Dr. Clark has kept meticulous records. I had intended to inform you in my own time. That you learned through gossip is unfortunate but fitting, given our entire marriage was conducted according to others' timelines rather than our own. The child will be born here. I expect no interference. Whatever arrangements you wish regarding inheritance are your concern. I ask only that they acknowledge this child as yours and protect them from scandal. My health, though you did not inquire, is satisfactory. Isabella Leroy. She signed with her maiden name deliberately, a small defiance. The letter was sent that evening. Isabella felt strange lightness afterward, as if laying down a burden. He knew now. Whatever came next, at least she'd face it without deception's weight. Mr. Benjamin Cross arrived exactly 1 week later in an elegant carriage, bearing a leather case of documents. Mrs. Harlow showed him into the sitting room with frigid courtesy. Sire, Lady Isabella will see you shortly. You may wait here. She left him waiting 20 minutes, small revenge Isabella appreciated. When she finally entered, dressed in burgundy that concealed her condition well, her manner was composed. Mr. Cross, quite a journey from London. Thank you for receiving me, Lady Isabella. He rose and bowed. I understand this is delicate. That is one word for it. She sat strategically, light behind her. I assume you're here for Dr. Clark's documentation? Among other things, yes. He opened his case. His Grace has asked me to confirm facts, ensure proper records, and discuss certain arrangements. How thoughtful of His Grace to be so immediately concerned with arrangements. Mr. Cross looked uncomfortable. Lady Isabella, I understand your position. Do you? Do you understand what it is to be cast off for failing to conceive, only to discover you were already pregnant? Her amber eyes met his steadily. Do you understand that irony, Mr. Cross? That cruelty? No, my lady. Then perhaps refrain from claiming to understand my position. She folded her hands. What does His Grace require? First, Dr. Clark's attestation regarding conception date and expected birth. His Grace needs to establish beyond doubt the child was conceived during your marriage. Dr. Clark prepared everything. Mrs. Harlow will provide it. Isabella nodded towards sealed envelopes on the desk. You'll find it thoroughly documented. Excellent, he made a note. Second, His Grace wishes to acknowledge the child formally as his heir. This requires legal declarations, registration, amendments to succession documents. Proceed as necessary. I won't obstruct the child's rights, regardless of how I feel about their father. That is very reasonable. I'm being reasonable for the child's sake, Mr. Cross, not His Grace's convenience. Let us be clear. Of course. Another note. Third, regarding your financial situation. My situation is adequate. Nevertheless, His Grace feels that as mother of his heir, you should receive additional support. He proposes increasing your allowance to £1,500 annually and establishing a trust for the child's education. Isabella blinked, surprised. 1,500 was nearly double her current allowance, generous enough to make life considerably more comfortable, to expand the mills, perhaps produce her own designs commercially. I see. And what does His Grace expect in return? Mr. Cross hesitated. He hopes you'll permit him to be informed of the child's welfare, to perhaps visit once the child is born, to be, in some capacity, a father. Something twisted in Isabella's chest, anger, pain, and underneath, treacherous hope. No, she pushed it down. One generous offer didn't undo months of coldness and devastating rejection. His Grace may visit, she said carefully. I won't keep him from his child, but he will not dictate how I raise this baby. He will not undermine my authority or question my decisions. If he wishes to be a father, he'll do so on terms we both agree to. Understood. I'll convey your conditions. I believe he'll find them acceptable. How fortunate for him. Isabella stood, signaling the end. Is there anything else? Just one matter. Mr. Cross looked genuinely uncomfortable. His Grace asked me to inquire after your health, your personal well-being. He was concerned. Isabella laughed, sharp and brittle. How kind to be concerned now. Tell him I'm as well as can be expected for a woman carrying a child while living in reduced circumstances and social disgrace. Also tell him his concern comes remarkably late and is not particularly welcome. Mr. Cross wisely said nothing. He gathered papers, accepted envelopes from Mrs. Harlow, and made his escape. After he left, Isabella stood with hands on her stomach. He wants to visit, she whispered to the baby. Your father wants to know you, I suppose that's something. But wanting is easy. Doing is harder. We'll see if he can manage it. Bernard's response came 3 days later, longer than the first, written across multiple pages. Isabella, Mr. Cross has conveyed Dr. Clark's documentation and reported on his conversation with you. I am writing to address several matters requiring direct communication, rather than intermediaries. First, I formally acknowledge the child you carry as my legitimate heir. Mr. Cross is proceeding with necessary legal declarations. The child will be recognized by the duchy and society. No doubt or scandal will touch them. This is not a favor. It is a right I'm acknowledging. Second, I have instructed Mr. Cross to increase your allowance as discussed. You may object to what you see as charity, but consider this is not for you, it's for our child. They deserve every advantage I can provide, including ensuring their mother is comfortable and secure. Third, and I ask that you read this with an open mind, I am sorry. I know those words carry little weight given how I've treated you. I know they cannot undo the pain, but they are sincere. I have had much time to reflect since our separation. What I did, ending our marriage so abruptly, days after your mother's death, phrasing grievances in terms of duty rather than acknowledging the human being I was hurting, it was unconscionable. I told myself I was being practical, that our marriage was a contract, and when contracts fail their terms, they should be dissolved. I told myself many things that let me avoid confronting truth, that I was a coward who blamed you for our shared disappointment rather than examining my own failures as a husband. You deserved better. You deserved a partner who saw you as a person rather than a means to an end. You deserved patience, compassion, and respect. I gave you none of these. The irony of discovering you were pregnant all along, that I cast you aside for failing to provide an heir while you already carried that heir, is not lost on me. It is perhaps exactly the humiliation I deserved. I do not write expecting forgiveness. I do not write expecting you'll ever trust me again. I write because you deserve to hear these words, and because our child deserves to know their father acknowledges his wrongs. When Edward died and I inherited the dukedom, I was terrified. I'd been raised to lead cavalry charges, not manage estates. I thought if I could just follow the rules perfectly, marry appropriately, manage efficiently, produce an heir quickly, I could prove I deserved this role I'd inherited by accident. You were part of that plan, Isabella, a component in a tactical strategy. When that strategy failed, I did what military training taught me. I cut losses and reformed my approach. It never occurred to me you were not a component, but a human being to be cherished. That realization came too late. Now I must live with knowing I destroyed something valuable simply because I was too frightened and proud to admit I didn't know what I was doing. Regarding visits, I'm grateful you'll permit me to see the child. I will not abuse this privilege. I'll respect your authority as the child's mother, and I won't visit until you explicitly invite me. The timing should be yours to control. Finally, Isabella, I want you to know that I regret, deeply, bitterly regret, that I didn't see your worth until too late. You are stronger, more capable, and more dignified than I ever gave you credit for. Our child is fortunate to have you as their mother. I wish you health and comfort in the months ahead." Bernard Isabella read it twice, searching for manipulation, but the words seemed painfully sincere. He was sorry. He acknowledged failures. He was asking, not demanding. "What do you make of this?" she asked Mrs. Harlow, handing her the letter. The housekeeper read slowly. "He sounds like a man brought low. Whether he truly means it or is maneuvering, time will tell." "I don't trust it," Isabella said, pacing. "It's too perfect. He says exactly what I might want to hear. Perhaps because it's true," Mrs. Harlow suggested gently. "Or perhaps shame has taught him something." Not to dukes raised as cavalry officers, Bernard was trained to be decisive, to commit to strategies without second-guessing. This self-reflection is completely unlike him. People change when circumstances force them to. He's lost his brother, inherited a role he never wanted, made catastrophic mistakes, and now discovered he has a child he thought would never exist. That's enough upheaval to transform anyone. Isabella pressed hands to her stomach, feeling the baby shift. "I don't know what to do with this. Part of me wants to believe he's sincere, but I've been disappointed too many times." "Then don't trust hope," Mrs. Harlow said practically. "Trust actions. If Bernard is truly sorry, he'll prove it through sustained effort over time, not just pretty words. And if he's not, well, you've already proven you can thrive without him." Isabella didn't respond to the letter immediately. She filed it away while she processed its implications. Days passed. October turned colder. Isabella's pregnancy became impossible to hide as her belly swelled. Village women called with knowing smiles and advice. "You'll want raspberry leaf tea in your final month, my lady," Mrs. Fletcher said, patting Isabella's hand. "And keep your feet elevated." "Thank you, Mrs. Fletcher." "Don't you worry about the gossips. Anyone with sense knows His Grace is a fool for letting you go. That babe you're carrying, that's proof of it." The villagers' support had been unexpected and deeply moving. It was during one of these visits, about 2 weeks after Bernard's letter, that Sophie Dalton burst in like a whirlwind. Isabella's old school friend swept into the sitting room, traveling cloak still fastened, and stopped short seeing Isabella's rounded figure. "Oh my God, it's true. You're actually—" "Hello, Sophie," Isabella said with a rueful smile. Sophie rushed forward, embracing her carefully. "Reached London, my dear. It's all anyone talks about. The Duchess cast off for being barren turns out to be pregnant. It's like a novel." "I'm no longer the Duchess." "Oh, but you might be again," Sophie said, eyes gleaming. "Do you know what they're saying? The Duke has withdrawn from society almost entirely, cancelled his courtship of Lady Cecilia. His sister let slip he's in profound reflection and regret." Those were her exact words. Isabella felt a flutter. He cancelled his courtship. Completely. "Lady Cecilia is furious." Sophie studied her friend. "You don't seem particularly pleased." "Should I be? His social discomfort doesn't undo what he did." "No, but it suggests he might genuinely regret it." Isabella moved to the window. "I received a letter from him full of apologies. He said all the right things, acknowledged failures, took responsibility, asked for nothing. And you don't believe him." "I don't know what to believe anymore." Isabella turned to face her. "Part of me wants to think he's changed, but I've been disappointed too many times to trust hope." Sophie took her hands. "Then don't trust hope. Trust yourself. You've survived his rejection. You've rebuilt your life. You're carrying his child and managing brilliantly. You have all the power now. He needs your forgiveness, your permission. Don't give him anything until you're certain he's earned it." They spent the afternoon talking, really talking. Sophie stayed 3 days, filling the manor with laughter, and reminding Isabella of who she'd been before marriage tried to reshape her. "You seem lighter," Sophie observed on her final morning. "More yourself." "I feel lighter," Isabella admitted, working on textile designs, as if something I didn't know I was carrying has been set down. After Sophie departed, Isabella reflected on her words. She was different now, not just physically, but fundamentally. The girl who'd married Bernard, hoping duty might grow into affection, no longer existed. In her place was a woman who'd learned her own strength, who'd discovered gifts she'd been told to hide, who'd built a life on her own terms. Whatever happened with Bernard, whatever role he might play in their child's life, Isabella would no longer define herself by his perception of her worth. She was enough. She had always been enough. The letters continued throughout winter. Bernard wrote weekly, never demanding response, simply writing. He told her about Cavendish Hall improvements, asked careful questions about her health, mentioned books he was reading. The letters were oddly intimate in their mundanity, offering glimpses of a Bernard Isabella hadn't known existed. I visited the nursery yesterday. One December letter read, "It has stood empty since my childhood. I had it cleaned, thinking ahead to when the child might visit. But standing there among old toys and faded curtains, I felt the weight of everything my parents did wrong. They were proper in every way, followed every rule, and produced two sons who barely knew them and certainly didn't love them. I don't want that for our child. I want them to know they are loved, not as an heir or duty, but as a person with inherent worth. I'm not certain I know how to do that, having never experienced it myself, but I'm determined to learn." Isabella read that letter 3 times before filing it with the others. The stack in her desk had grown thick, evidence of Bernard's sustained effort. "He's persistent," Mrs. Harlow observed one morning. "Persistence is a military virtue. He was trained never to give up on strategic objectives." "Is that what he sees you as?" Isabella paused. "I don't know what he sees me as anymore. These letters, they're different from the man I married. More human, more vulnerable. Perhaps that's who he always was underneath, but never felt safe enough to show. Or perhaps he's learned to weaponize vulnerability." "You don't believe that?" "No," Isabella admitted, "but I'm afraid to believe anything else." By January, she could no longer see her feet. By February, climbing stairs required determination. By March, she felt less like a person and more like a ship, vast, ungainly, buffeted by forces beyond control. "How do women do this more than once?" she asked Mrs. Harlow one afternoon, shifting uncomfortably. Mrs. Harlow laughed. "Wait until the baby arrives. Then you'll know what tyranny truly means." The baby had grown strong and remarkably active, keeping Isabella awake with persistent movements. "You're going to be a handful," she told the restless creature one sleepless night. "I can already tell. You have your father's stubbornness and probably my temper." She paused, feeling another strong kick. "He still writes every week, asks about you constantly. Dr. Clark says first babies are rarely early, but your father seems convinced you'll arrive tomorrow." The baby kicked again, as if responding. "I haven't invited him to visit yet," Isabella continued softly. "I'm not ready. Does that make me cruel? Perhaps. But I need to protect us both until I'm certain he won't hurt us again." In late March, Dr. Clark pronounced Isabella ready to deliver at any time. "The baby has dropped. Could be tonight. Could be 3 weeks from now. First babies are unpredictable." "Wonderful. So I simply wait in suspense." "I'm afraid so. But Lady Isabella, have you given thought to who should be notified when you go into labor?" "You're asking if we should inform Bernard?" "He is the father. He has a right to know." Isabella was quiet, hand resting on her belly. "If labor begins in earnest, you may send word, but tell him not to race here in panic. Tell him the baby is coming, that mother and child are in good hands, and he may visit after the birth if he wishes." "Very sensible." That time came sooner than expected. Isabella woke at 3 in the morning on the 1st of April, with a sensation she'd never experienced. Deep, rolling pressure that started in her back and wrapped around her abdomen, squeezing with relentless force. She lay still, counting breaths until it passed. Perhaps nothing, perhaps just the baby shifting. But 20 minutes later, it happened again. "Mrs. Harlow!" Isabella called. "Mrs. Harlow!" The housekeeper appeared within moments, eyes alert. "It's time." "I think so. Oh God, I think so." The household erupted into controlled chaos. Mary was dispatched for Dr. Clark. Thomas Briggs rode for the village midwife, and a sealed letter was given to the fastest rider, addressed to the Duke of Cavendish in London, with instructions to ride hard and not stop. Dr. Clark arrived within the hour, remarkably composed. "Well, Lady Isabella, let's see how this progresses." Mrs. Cooper, the midwife, arrived shortly after, a sturdy woman who had delivered half the county's babies. She took one look at Isabella and nodded approvingly. "Good, strong contractions. This baby knows what it's doing. First babies usually take their time, but sometimes they're eager. We'll see which sort you've got." Isabella's baby turned out to be eager. The labor was not easy, childbirth never was, but it moved faster than anticipated. By noon, Isabella was gripping Mrs. Harlowe's hand hard enough to leave bruises, breathing through contractions that came in relentless waves. "You're doing beautifully," Dr. Clark encouraged. "I can see the head. Just a few more pushes." "A few more?" Isabella gasped. "I've already pushed 1,000 times." "Then what's a few more?" Mrs. Harlowe said firmly. "You're strong. You can do this." The final contraction built like a storm, and Isabella bore down with every ounce of strength, feeling as though she might split apart. And then, suddenly, miraculously, there was release, and a sound, a cry. High, outraged, furious at being forced into the cold world. "It's a boy," Mrs. Cooper announced, laughing. "A healthy, loud boy." Dr. Clark was already cleaning the baby, wrapping him in soft linen. 10 fingers, 10 toes, good strong lungs. Lady Isabella, you have a son." "A son." Isabella's vision blurred as Dr. Clark placed the tiny bundle in her arms. He was red-faced and wrinkled, dark hair plastered to his small head, unmistakably Cavendish hair. His eyes squeezed shut as he wailed, tiny fists flailing. "Hello, William," Isabella whispered, the name she'd chosen weeks ago finally spoken. "Hello, my darling boy. I'm your mother." William's crying tapered at her voice. He made a small, seeking motion, and Isabella laughed through tears. "Hungry already? You really are your father's son." Mrs. Harlowe wiped her own eyes. "He's perfect. Absolutely perfect." "He is, isn't he?" Isabella couldn't look away from the tiny face. "He's really here. Really real." The next hours passed in exhausted wonder. Isabella was cleaned and settled. William was examined, weighed, measured, declared completely healthy. Mary brought broth and tea. "You should rest," Dr. Clark said gently. "The baby will sleep, and you need to recover." But Isabella couldn't rest. She couldn't stop looking at William, touching his impossibly small hands, his soft cheek, the dark hair so clearly Bernard's legacy. "He looks like his father," she said to Mrs. Harlowe. "Aye, he does. The same colouring, same determined chin. God help us both if he inherited that Cavendish stubbornness." Isabella adjusted William's blanket. "Mrs. Harlowe, do you think Bernard will come?" "The messenger left at dawn. If the Duke rides hard, he could be here by tomorrow evening." Tomorrow, Isabella felt her stomach tighten. Bernard would come. He would see his son. And then what? She was too tired to think about it. Instead, she held William close and let herself simply exist in this moment. A mother with her newborn child. The future uncertain, but the present absolutely perfect. Bernard arrived not tomorrow evening, but the following dawn, having ridden through the night. Isabella was nursing William when she heard commotion downstairs. Horses, urgent voices, Mrs. Harlowe saying something sharp about reasonable hours. "Let him come up," Isabella called. "'Cause it's all right." She had time to straighten her nightgown and wrap a shawl before she heard footsteps on the stairs. Quick, urgent, almost running. Then Bernard appeared. He looked terrible. His clothing was rumpled and dusty, his auburn brown hair disheveled, his face pale with fatigue and fear. The scar on his cheekbone stood stark against his pallor. "Isabella," he said, voice cracking, is the baby?" "We're both fine, healthy." "Perfect." Relief washed over him so profoundly it made him stagger. He caught himself on the doorframe. "Thank God. When I got the message, I thought—" He stopped, shook his head. "I just rode." "Yes, I can see that." His eyes went to the cradle, and whatever composure he'd maintained crumbled completely. "May I?" he asked, voice barely audible, already moving toward it. "Of course." He crossed the room slowly and knelt beside the cradle. For a long moment, he simply stared at William. At the tiny face and the small fist against his cheek, the gentle rise and fall of breath. Then Bernard made a sound, not quite a word, not quite a sob, and pressed his hand to his mouth, tears streaming openly. "He's so small," Bernard whispered. "God, Isabella, he's so small. Babies tend to be." His hands. He reached out, hesitant. "May I touch him? He's your son. You don't need my permission." But he did. He looked at her with such uncertainty that Isabella felt something crack in her carefully built walls. "Go ahead," she said softly. Bernard touched William's hand with one finger, the lightest touch imaginable. William's fingers curled reflexively around it, and Bernard made that sound again, somewhere between laughter and weeping. "He's perfect. Isabella, he's perfect. He has your mouth, I think, and his hair. That's pure Cavendish." Edward had hair exactly that color. The mention of his dead brother seemed to undo him. Bernard bent his head, still holding William's tiny hand, and wept like a man whose defenses had finally shattered. "I'm sorry," he said between broken breaths. "God, Isabella, I'm so sorry. For everything, for every moment of pain I caused you, I'm sorry." Isabella felt her own tears start. She had imagined this moment countless times, imagined various reactions. But this raw, genuine grief and joy? She hadn't imagined this at all. "Bernard," she said quietly. He looked up, green eyes red-rimmed and desperate. "I threw away the most precious thing I had because I was too blind to see its value. I hurt you in ways words cannot heal. And now I have a son I don't deserve and a woman I love who has every reason to despise me." "I don't despise you. You should." "Perhaps. But despite your best efforts, I find I cannot." She wiped her cheeks. "I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm cautious, but I don't hate you, Bernard. I don't think I ever did." He closed his eyes as if her words caused physical pain. "You are far more generous than I deserve." "I'm not generous. I'm realistic. You are William's father. Whatever exists between us, that truth remains." William stirred, making small sounds. Bernard watched, transfixed, as the baby's eyes opened, unfocused and dark, and his face began to scrunch in preparation for crying. "May I pick him up?" Bernard asked, almost pleading. "Sit in that chair first, less likely to drop him." Bernard obeyed, settling into the armchair. Isabella rose, every muscle aching, and lifted William from his cradle. The baby squirmed, face red with impending outrage. "Support his head," Isabella instructed, transferring William to Bernard's arms. "Like this. Don't be afraid to hold him firmly." Bernard took William with extreme care. For a long moment, he simply stared, his expression cycling through wonder, fear, and something so tender it made Isabella's throat tight. "Hello, William," he whispered. "I'm your father. I don't know how to be a father yet, but I promise I'll learn. I promise I'll try to be worthy of you." William regarded him solemnly, then his face crumpled and he began to wail. Bernard looked panicked. "What did I do? Is he hurt?" "He's hungry. Here, give him back. This part you cannot help with." She took William and settled into her chair, arranging her shawl before helping the baby latch. The crying stopped immediately. Bernard watched, still looking shell-shocked. "How often does he eat?" "Every 2 to 3 hours, sometimes more." "And you manage this alone?" "Mary and Mrs. Harlow help when they can, but yes, mostly alone." Isabella adjusted William's position. "It's exhausting and wonderful and terrifying." "You shouldn't have to do it alone," Bernard said quietly. "You should have someone to share the burden and joy." Isabella met his eyes. "Are you volunteering?" "I'm asking if you might, eventually, consider allowing me to be that person. Not immediately, I know I haven't earned that right, but someday, if I can prove I've truly changed." He trailed off, the question hanging. Isabella was saved from answering by Mrs. Harlow's arrival with breakfast. "Your Grace, I've had cook prepare something in the dining room." It was a clear dismissal. Bernard recognized it and rose. "Thank you, Mrs. Harlow." He looked at Isabella. "May I stay for a few days? There's an inn in the village. I wouldn't intrude, but I'd like to be near William." "You may stay," Isabella heard herself say. "There are guest rooms here. You're William's father. It's right that you should be near him." The gratitude in his expression was almost painful to witness. After he left, Mrs. Harlow turned to Isabella with raised eyebrows. "You're letting him stay?" "He rode through the night to be here. He wept when he saw William. He asked permission to hold his own son rather than demanding it. What would you have me do?" Mrs. Harlow sighed but nodded. "Just be careful. Guard your heart." But Isabella's heart was not as guarded as she thought. Over the following days, Bernard proved remarkably devoted. He was there for every feeding, watching with fascinated attention. He learned to change nappies, though his first attempts were comically inept. He walked William when the baby fussed, pacing at all hours. He read to him from books the child couldn't possibly understand, his deep voice seeming to soothe William when nothing else would. "You're going to spoil him," Isabella said one afternoon, watching Bernard hold William while the baby slept. "Good. He deserves to be spoiled. Children need discipline too." "He's 4 days old, Isabella. I think we have time." Bernard smiled down at William. "Go right now. I just want him to know he's loved." Something in Isabella's chest loosened. "He will know, I promise that. Because of you. You've already given him more love in 4 days than I received in my entire childhood. Your parents were cold. My parents were aristocrats, which amounts to the same thing. I was raised by nurses and tutors, saw my mother perhaps once daily for formal visits. Affection was considered weakness. I was taught to value duty above all else." "That sounds lonely." "It was. I didn't realize how lonely until I saw you with William and understood what I'd missed." He paused. "What I made you miss during our marriage. I treated you the way I was raised to treat everyone, as a component rather than a person." "What changed your perspective?" "Losing you, realizing what I'd thrown away, and then imagining this child growing up the way I did, emotionally starved, taught love is weakness. The thought was unbearable. I want better for him, which means I have to be better. You're trying. I can see that. Is it enough?" The question was vulnerable, desperate. "Can you see yourself ever trusting me again?" Before Isabella could answer, William made an urgent sound that quickly escalated into a full wail. "Fighty feeding time," Isabella said, reaching for the baby. "He waits for no one." A routine established itself. Bernard arrived at the nursery shortly after dawn, often with tea he'd convinced Mrs. Harlow to prepare. He held William while Isabella ate, walking and murmuring about cavalry tactics and estate management. "I'm teaching him about formations," Bernard explained one morning. "He's 5 days old. I don't think he's retaining military strategy." "You'd be surprised. He seems attentive." Bernard adjusted William's position. "Besides, my voice soothes him." Isabella watched them, father and son bonding over completely inappropriate topics, and felt something warm unfurl in her chest. "Tell me about Edward," she said impulsively. "You've mentioned him several times, but I never really knew him." Bernard's steps faltered, then resumed. "Edward was everything I wasn't. Confident, charismatic, perfectly suited for the dukedom. He was born first by 3 years, trained from childhood while I was trained for military service. We weren't close. Our parents didn't encourage sibling affection, but I admired him." He paused by the window. "The hunting accident happened 3 weeks before my 30th birthday. I was in Vienna, got a letter informing me Edward was dead, and I was now Duke of Cavendish. Just like that. No preparation. Just come home. You're needed." That must have been terrifying. It was paralyzing. I'd spent 12 years as a cavalry officer. I understood military hierarchy, tactical planning. I knew nothing about managing estates or society politics. Edward had been trained for all of it. I'd been trained to charge enemy lines. He turned from the window. So I did what I'd been trained to do, made a strategic plan and executed it. Marry for wealth to stabilize finances, learn estate management quickly, produce an heir to secure succession. Simple, practical, efficient. And when the plan failed, I abandoned it and formed a new one, like any officer does when a strategy fails. He looked at William. I never considered that my strategy involved a human being with feelings, that you weren't a component, but a person who deserved to be valued. When did you realize that? Too late. After I'd already destroyed what we might have had. He met her eyes. After you'd left and I was alone in that enormous house, realizing I'd traded companionship for pride and ended up with nothing. William stirred, making sounds of discontent. Bernard instinctively began swaying, the movement so natural Isabella doubted he realized he was doing it. You're good with him, she observed. Am I? I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. That's parenthood. None of us know. We just try and hope we don't ruin them. That's remarkably unhelpful as reassurance. Would you rather I lie and say it gets easier? Yes, actually, lies would be comforting. Isabella laughed, surprised by how natural it felt. Sorry, Bernard. Better to face difficulties with clear eyes. Is that what you've been doing? Managing the mills? Among other things. Isabella gestured to her desk, covered with pattern designs. I've also been creating textile designs again. The workers remember my early patterns. They've been encouraging me to produce new ones. Bernard moved closer, studying the intricate designs. These are remarkable. The detail, the mathematical precision. Isabella, these are professional quality, better than professional. She flushed, unused to praise. I learned as a child in the design rooms. I remember you had a sketchbook once, early in our marriage. You were drawing by the library window. When I came in, you closed it quickly. I never asked what you were working on. Floral patterns. I was trying to capture the Cavendish roses, but you made clear that duchesses didn't engage in trade-adjacent activities, so I put the sketchbook away. And I never noticed, never asked what you'd given up. Bernard's voice was heavy with regret. I never considered what you might want beyond the role I'd assigned you. No, you didn't. They were both silent. William made a small sound but didn't wake. If I could go back, Bernard said finally, knowing what I know now, I would ask. I would see a person with gifts rather than just a means to an end. I would encourage your design work. I would try to be your partner. But you can't go back. No, I can only go forward. He looked at her directly. If you give me that chance, I'll spend it trying to be the man I should have been, not just for William's sake, but for yours, because you deserve a partner who sees you, values you, supports what you want to create. Isabella felt her breath catch. This vulnerable, honest Bernard was so different from the man she'd married that she sometimes felt she was meeting him for the first time. I don't know if I can trust that. I understand. I'm not asking you to trust me immediately. I'm asking for the chance to earn it over time. Before she could respond, William woke fully and began to cry. May I try? Bernard asked, already swaying. You try. Bernard paced, murmuring softly, and William's crying gradually subsided. Isabella watched them, her son and his father beginning to know each other. How long will you stay? She asked. Bernard paused. As long as you'll permit. I've arranged for estate business to be managed remotely. Unless you want me to leave, I'd like to stay through the rest of the month. Longer, if you think it might be helpful. It would be helpful. For William, he should know his father. And for you, would my presence be helpful for you or simply tolerated? Isabella considered honestly. I'm not sure yet. Ask me in a few weeks. Bernard nodded, accepting the ambiguity. Kinda fair enough. The weeks fell into unexpected rhythm. Bernard stayed, taking a guest room. He rose early, military habits persisting, and took long rides before breakfast. Isabella often found him in the stables afterward, grooming his horse himself, completely at ease. You're good with horses, she observed one morning. Always have been. Horses made sense to me when people never did. They respond to consistency and clear communication. No hidden agendas, no social games. Is that why you joined the cavalry? Partly. Also because second sons need occupation, and I had natural aptitude. He moved the curry comb efficiently. This is Tempest. I've had him 5 years. He's carried me through more diplomatic missions than I can count, and only thrown me once, entirely my fault. The scar. The accident that killed Edward. Bernard's hand stilled. Yes, we'd gone hunting. Pleasant autumn day. Edward's horse spooked at something. Threw him. He struck his head on a rock. I reached him within moments, but he was already gone. His voice was carefully neutral, but Isabella heard the grief beneath. I'm sorry. Everyone is sorry. Sorry doesn't change anything. Edward was still dead. I was still thrust into a role I had no idea how to fill. He set down the brush and turned to her. Do you know what I thought when I first saw William? In that moment, kneeling by his cradle. Isabella shook her head. I thought, Edward should be here. He should be holding his heir, teaching him about duty. Edward would have known what to do. He always did. Bernard's eyes held old pain and new resolution. But Edward is gone, and I'm tired of trying to be his ghost, tired of measuring myself against what he would have done. I want to be present as myself, flawed, uncertain, learning as I go. That's all any of us can do. Is it enough? Can I be enough for William? For you? Isabella stepped closer to Tempest, running her hand along his neck. The stallion whickered softly. He likes you, Bernard observed. Animals are good judges of character. They sense sincerity. And what does Tempest sense from me? That you're trustworthy with things you understand how to care for. Horses, military strategy, estate management, these you can handle. People are harder. Emotions are harder. But you're learning. Am I learning fast enough? There's no schedule for this, Bernard. No tactical timeline. You're asking if I can forgive you, if I can trust you again. Those aren't questions with simple answers. Then I'll provide both time and proof, as much as you need. In the evenings, after William was fed and sleeping, they began to talk. Really talk, in ways they never had during their marriage. Bernard told her about Vienna, about diplomatic life where cavalry skills mattered less than navigating social alliances. Isabella told him about her childhood in the mills, learning to see patterns in everything. Your mother was formidable, Bernard said one night by the fire. I knew she was shrewd from negotiations, but I didn't realize the full extent. She built it from almost nothing. My father left debts when he died. Mother turned his small textile interests into manufacturing empire through will and brilliant investment. And design. That I learned despite her, not because of her. She thought it beneath me, but I loved the design rooms. Isabella's charcoal moved across paper in practiced strokes. The supervisors taught me in secret. Bernard came to look over her shoulder at the design, delicate cherry blossoms in precise mathematical spirals. It's beautiful. You have a real gift. I'm sorry I never recognized it before. You never looked. No, I didn't. He didn't try to excuse it. They were silent, only the scratch of Isabella's charcoal and crackle of fire breaking the quiet. What will you do with your designs? Bernard asked eventually. I don't know yet. Part of me wants to see them produced, to walk into a shop and see fabric with my patterns. I could help with that. Not because you need my help, you're clearly more than capable, but because I have connections through the duchy, textile merchants, investors who could help you build something if that's what you want. Why would you do that? Because it's yours. Because you should have the chance to create what you want. He paused. And because I'm trying to understand what partnership actually means. It's not just about what serves me or the duchy. It's about supporting what matters to you. That's a radical philosophy for a duke. Perhaps dukes need more radical philosophies. A hint of humor touched his voice. The traditional ones didn't serve me well. Isabella found herself smiling. No, I suppose they didn't. By the third week of Bernard's stay, even Mrs. Harlow had thawed slightly. He's different, she admitted one morning. Whether the difference is real or performance remains to be seen. I think it's real, Isabella said, surprising herself with the certainty, or at least he's genuinely trying to make it real. Trying isn't the same as succeeding. No, but it's the necessary first step. Mrs. Harlow studied her shrewdly. You're falling in love with him, or perhaps for the first time, since love wasn't part of your first marriage. I don't know if it's love, but I watch him with William and my whole face softens. I laugh at his terrible jokes about cavalry tactics. There's no shame in it, just be careful. But protecting herself was becoming harder with each passing day. With each morning, Bernard appeared with tea. With each evening they talked. With each moment she watched him hold William with increasing confidence. One afternoon, about 4 weeks after William's birth, Bernard found Isabella in her study surrounded by designs. I was looking for William. Mary said she brought him to you. He's sleeping in his basket, Isabella gestured to the corner. Bernard moved to look at his son, expression softening. He's grown so much already. Babies do that. Isabella stretched cramped fingers. Mrs. Cooper says he's thriving. And you? How are you progressing? Well enough. Tired, but that comes with motherhood. You make it look effortless. That's a polite fiction. I'm making it up as I go, same as you. Bernard laughed softly, real and unguarded. We're quite a pair. Two people with no idea what they're doing, trying to raise a child and possibly rebuild a marriage. The word marriage hung between them. They'd been carefully avoiding that topic. Is that what we're doing? Isabella asked quietly. Bernard moved closer. I'd like to think so. If you're willing, but I know I have no right to assume, Bernard, Isabella stopped him. You don't have to keep apologizing. What I need now isn't more apologies. It's consistency, proof over time that this version of you won't vanish when things get difficult. It won't, I swear. Don't swear. Just do. Just keep being this person. And in time, maybe I'll believe it completely. He nodded. May I ask one thing? What? Would you consider allowing me to court you properly? Not as strategic alliance or duty, but as a man pursuing a woman he admires and loves. We did everything backward the first time. Perhaps we could try doing it right. You want to court me while we're technically still married but legally separated. I want to court you as if none of the past mattered, as if we're meeting fresh. I want to learn what makes you happy, what you dream about. I want to support your design work, celebrate your successes, be present for struggles. I want to earn the right to be your husband in truth, not just on paper. That's quite a lot to want. Then tell me if it's too much. Tell me if you need more time. If the answer is no and will always be no, I can accept that. What I can't do is continue in limbo without knowing if there's hope. Isabella looked at him, at this man who was both stranger and familiar, who had hurt her terribly, yet was trying desperately to heal what he'd broken. She looked at William sleeping peacefully. She looked at her designs, evidence of the self she'd reclaimed. I'm not ready to promise anything permanent, she said finally. But I'm willing to let you try. To let us both try, because rebuilding trust goes both ways. I won't hurt you again, Bernard said. You can't promise that. You're human. We'll both make mistakes. But what you can promise is to be honest when you do. To talk to me instead of making decisions unilaterally. To see me as a partner. I can promise that. All of that? Absolutely. They stood together in companionable silence. William stirred but didn't wake. So, Bernard said eventually, does this mean I'm courting you? I suppose it does, though it may be the strangest courtship in history. The circumstances are unusual, but then, nothing about us has ever been conventional. True enough, Isabella turned to face him. So how does one properly court in this situation? Perhaps honesty will suffice, and time, and proving day after day that I'm worth the risk. That might just work. Behind them, William began to cry, hungry wail signaling feeding time. They both moved toward him simultaneously, hands meeting briefly over the basket, before Isabella scooped him up. I'll get his blanket, Bernard said, already reaching for the cloth William preferred. Thank you. As Isabella settled with William, Bernard positioned himself nearby, not hovering but present, available if needed. Such a small thing, this quiet support. But it meant more than any grand gesture. This was what she'd needed all along. Not a duke performing duty, but a partner showing up. Not grand declarations, but consistent care. Not perfection, but genuine effort. Maybe they could build something real from the ashes of what had failed. 6 months later, The drawing room at Leroy Manor was full of afternoon light and the sounds of an active baby. William, now 7 months old, sat on a blanket surrounded by wooden blocks, babbling as he worked to demolish the tower Bernard had built. "He's going to be an engineer," Bernard declared as William toppled another structure with a gleeful shriek. "He's 7 months old," Isabella said, laughing from her seat where she worked on designs. Heir too early to determine his career, never too early to recognize genius. Bernard rebuilt the tower only to have William knock it down again. Isabella watched them, her heart full in a way she hadn't thought possible. The past 6 months had been transformative. Not easy, not without moments of doubt, but ultimately healing. Bernard had kept his promises. He had courted her properly, taking long walks where they talked about everything. He had supported her design work, using his connections to introduce her patterns to merchants who now clamored for more. He had been present for every milestone of William's development, and he had been patient when Isabella's trust faltered, when old fears resurfaced, when she needed space to heal at her own pace. "I received a letter from Sophie today," Isabella said. "She's coming to visit next week." "Excellent. I like Sophie." Bernard glanced up. "She's terrifyingly honest. She says London is boring without scandals. Apparently we've become old news." "Thank God." Bernard's expression turned serious. "Though speaking of being Duke and Duchess, there is something I wanted to discuss." Isabella set down her charcoal. "That sounds ominous." "Not ominous, just significant." Bernard left William to his blocks and came to kneel beside Isabella's chair. From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet box. Isabella's heart began to race. "6 months ago," Bernard said quietly, "you agreed to let me court you, to prove through consistent action that I had changed. I believe, I've shown you that my transformation is real and lasting." He opened the box, revealing a ring, not the grand piece Isabella had worn as Duchess, but something more beautiful in its simplicity. A sapphire surrounded by smaller diamonds, elegant and understated. "Isabella Leroy, I'm not asking you to return to being my Duchess in the way you were before. I'm not asking you to reclaim a title defined by duty. I'm asking you to marry me again, truly marry me this time, because I love you. Because I want to spend my life with you as my partner, my equal, my dearest friend. Because I want us to be a true family built on choice and love." On the blanket, William made an encouraging sound and clapped his small hands together. "You taught him to do that for dramatic effect, didn't you?" Isabella said, laughing through tears. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Bernard was utterly unconvincing. "Will you answer the question?" Isabella looked at the ring, then at Bernard's hopeful face, then at William, their son, gurgling happily. She thought about the man Bernard had been and the man he had become. She thought about the loneliness of separation and the gradual warmth of these months. She thought about trust, painfully rebuilt. She thought about love, not the transactional arrangement of their first marriage, but something stronger, earned through adversity and choice. "Yes," she said, her voice steady despite tears. "Yes, I'll marry you again, properly this time." Bernard's face transformed with joy. He slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly and pulled her into his arms. "I love you," he whispered against her hair. "I will spend every day being worthy of you. You don't have to be worthy, you just have to be present, to be honest, to be the partner we both should have had from the start." "I can do that. I will do that." William made an insistent noise, and they both laughed, turning to the baby who was reaching imperiously for his father. Bernard scooped him up, holding him high and making him giggle. "Did you hear, William? Your mother agreed to marry me. We're going to be a proper family." "We already are a proper family," Isabella corrected, joining them. "The wedding just makes it official." Bernard kissed her, soft and sweet, full of promise and hope. "Then let's make it official soon. I've wasted enough time." 1 month, Isabella decided. "We'll marry in 1 month, here in the village church. Nothing grand. Just us, William, and the people who matter." Perfect. And it was perfect, not because everything had been easy or the past erased, but because they had both grown enough to build something new from what had broken. They married exactly 1 month later. The ceremony was simple but joyful, held in the same church where Lady Margaret had been buried. This time, there were no contracts, no calculations. William, now 8 months old and sitting strongly, was held by Mrs. Harlow during the vows, but made his presence known with enthusiastic babbling that made everyone laugh. When the vicar asked if they promised to love, honor, and cherish each other, both Bernard and Isabella answered with absolute conviction, "I will, I will." And they meant it, not as obligation or duty, but as choice freely made by two people who had learned what they truly meant to each other. As they left the church hand in hand, with William in Bernard's arms and autumn sun warm on their faces, Isabella felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace, not the absence of challenge. Parenthood and marriage would bring plenty, but peace in knowing that whatever came, they would face it together, as partners, as equals, as two imperfect people committed to building something lasting and true. "What are you thinking?" Bernard asked, as they paused at the church gate. Isabella smiled up at her husband, truly her husband now. "I'm thinking we've come a long way from that study where you ended our marriage." "A lifetime," Bernard agreed, gently extracting his cravat from William's determined grip. "And we have many more lifetimes to go." William reached out and grabbed Isabella's finger with surprising strength. "Yes," Isabella said, looking at her son, then at her husband. "Many more lifetimes. And I can't wait to live them all." The future stretched before them, uncertain in details but certain in foundation. They would raise William together, teaching him about mills and cavalry, pattern design and estate stewardship, about being present and choosing love even when difficult. They would expand the textile business. They would likely have more children. They would make mistakes, argue about details, struggle with normal complications. But they would do it together, with honesty and patience and the knowledge that they had survived the worst and emerged stronger. As the carriage carried them home through golden afternoon, with William dozing against his father's shoulder and Isabella's hand secure in Bernard's, she reflected on the strange journey that had brought them here. Perhaps some structures needed to collapse before they could be rebuilt on firmer ground. Perhaps some relationships needed to break before they could heal stronger than before. And perhaps some love stories needed to begin with endings before they could find their true beginnings. "I love you," Bernard said softly, his lips brushing her temple. "My partner, my equal, my choice." "I love you too," Isabella replied, and meant it with her whole heart. "My husband, my co-conspirator in parenthood, my second chance at everything." William stirred and made a small, contented sound, as if blessing their union. And in that moment, surrounded by love freely given and trust painstakingly earned, Isabella knew with absolute certainty that this imperfect, hard-won, beautifully real love was worth every moment of pain it had taken to find. They were home, finally, truly home. Thank you so much for staying with us until the very end. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing to our channel, leaving a like, sharing it with friends, and writing a comment below. Your support means everything to us and keeps us inspired to tell more stories filled with love, resilience, redemption, and second chances. At the end of this video, you'll find another unforgettable romance from our collection. Click and discover where the next story will take you. With all our appreciation, the Empire of Heart Stories team